Hello there. I've got an interesting question from Jeff in Colorado. This is about Deuteronomy chapter 23. It's part of the Mosaic Law, and there's a concern with regards to a possible problem later on in the history of Israel. In Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 3 through 6, God says that Moabites may not enter the assembly of the Lord even to the 10th generation. Let me read this. Deuteronomy chapter 23, beginning in verse 3. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever. All right? Because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor from Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse you. Nevertheless, the Lord your God would not listen to Balaam, and then he goes on from there. But this is important because when you look at the history following this, you discover that there is the entrance of Ruth. Ruth was the grandmother of King David. All right, in Ruth chapter 4 verses 17 to 22, Ruth was a Moabite. And so if you've got Ruth, who is a Moabite, and she is in the genealogical lineage of King David, well, King David, the question is King David a valid member of the congregation, of the community? Is he allowed to be there? Because according to the law in Deuteronomy chapter 23, there's to be no Moabite in the congregation of Israel at any time. This is a law forever. And so how does this work? All right? How did this happen? And the answer is that the identity of a person in terms of their nationality, whether they are an Ammonite, a Moabite, an Israelite, all right, the identity of a person was determined by the paternal line, not by the maternal line. Okay, now things are different in Judaism today, but in accordance with the law that God gave, to include this one, the identity of a person as an Israelite or a Moabite is in accordance with the paternal line. Therefore, if you're a lady, you can move from one tribe to the other just fine. For Ruth to be of the Moabites, to be a Moabite, she can marry an Israelite, and when she marries the Israelite, then she is an Israelite, and all of her children are Israelites. So Ruth being redeemed by Boaz and being welcomed into his household, and then they had children together, grandchildren came, and one of them was King David. All of that is just fine, and all of that conforms to the Mosaic law because the lineage was based on the paternal line. Now, in Judaism, this changed after the Babylonian captivity. And it was a change that was not made by God. It was a decision that was made by the people. And I have some ideas, I have some speculations, my own personal beliefs with regards to why they did that. I'm probably not going to talk about my opinion as to why that happened because it's just a little bit too far separated from anything I could really say historically. It's just my own suspicion as to how that worked out. But the way that it worked out was a big change, and it was definitely against the Mosaic law. So the children of Israel who returned from Babylon, while they were all considered to be Jews, Israelites, legitimately, they came with this belief that the the Jewish identity is going to be based on the maternal line and not on the paternal line. And that was a big issue between them and the people who were already there in the land, like the Samaritans, because the Samaritans were keeping track of their genealogical records and their identity according to the paternal line and not the maternal line. And so there was a disagreement between the Jews who returned from Babylon and the Samaritan. This is where the problems between those two communities began. And of course, there were more issues that happened later on, all the way up into what happened at the end of the Maccabean Wars. But the paternal line was how God established things. When the Jews decided to determine the identity of a Jew by the maternal line, they deviated from the law of God, and they have deviated from the law of God ever since. They have not been in compliance with the law that was given by Moses ever since, which, of course, it appears that nobody seems to care for various reasons that are probably similar as to why that happened at the time when they were released from their captivity in Babylon, in my opinion. For that to be corrected in this day and age would not likely go very well. All right, but that's how you're able to get through the law with regards to Deuteronomy chapter 23, and the fact that David's grandmother was in fact a Moabite. All right, thanks.